Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael, and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a throwaway account in the relationship advice subreddit. The post is titled, "My wife is having a meltdown over our daughter's personality and I don't know what to do. I'm a 34-year-old guy and I have a 16-year-old stepdaughter. My wife is 31. In high school, my wife was a popular girl stereotype. Pink, blonde, chunky highlights in her brown hair. She was on the cheerleading team, had lots of friends and boyfriends, was well known and well liked. She was basically the living embodiment of the picture-perfect girl from those cheesy 2000s high school movies. And then she got pregnant. When she was 15, she had her daughter. She doesn't know who the father is and any potential fathers for the girl up and left way back when. Her daughter is recently 16. I never wanted kids, I found them annoying, but I fell in love with my wife and got married when she was 20 and I was 23, after dating for 2 years. We hit it off and I married her and decided to suck it up around the kid. I never planned to absolutely love being a dad to her specifically. Kids still annoy me, but my daughter was different. She was quiet, nerdy, even at a young age. I married her mother when she was 5 and we clicked right away. We went on daddy-daughter dates every weekend. I played dolls with her. I let her paint my nails and do makeup on me. I drove her to and from school in my cop car. We even did daddy-daughter duo costumes for Halloween. Over the past 2 years, she's developed a darker dress style. I don't know what the proper subculture of her outfits is, but according to her, she's dressing like a horror game protagonist and a Monster High character. Purple is her main color, which she incorporates into this specific aesthetic blend, as she calls it. I don't get it, but maybe that's because I'm a man in my 30s. I don't know. She likes ghosts, tarot cards, vampires, zombies, aliens, and creepy Victorian dolls. I don't get it, but also I don't care, because if it makes her happy, so what? She's also an introvert and prefers to play games on her computer or read fantasy occult novels rather than hang out with other teens her age. She has friends, so I'm not too worried about her being completely withdrawn. I'm just glad I don't have to drive her around since she only has a learner's permit currently. My wife hates this. My wife always wanted a girly girl, pinks and pastels and flowers and all that. She wants our daughter to get a boyfriend, be more social, be a cheerleader like she was, which in itself is valid. I get it. I'm sure most every parent has preferences for what they want their kid to turn out like, and some disappointment when they stray from that fantasy is valid, some. My wife constantly takes and hides my daughter's darker room decor. She constantly gets pastel dresses for our daughter, tells her to wipe off her dark eye makeup, tries to set her up on dates with jock types from my daughter's school, and convinces her to sign up for both school and summer activities like cheerleading or volleyball. I could have put up with all of that. I really could have. But a few weeks ago, I woke up to my wife finally hitting her breaking point. I woke up in the middle of the night to my wife screaming and having what I can confidently describe as a borderline meltdown. She was crying and saying all she ever wanted was a normal daughter who likes pink, is a cheerleader, has a boyfriend, and will give her grandkids. I had to drag her out of the hallway after 30 minutes of this. I kept thinking it would stop, but it kept going on and on. My daughter was just staring at this whole thing from the doorway of her room. What caused this meltdown from my wife? My daughter dyed purple over the blonde highlights my wife had forced her to get in her hair, which wasn't even breaking a house rule, as my wife and I have both told her she can do whatever she wants with her hair as long as she doesn't stain too many towels. It's been weeks and my daughter won't talk to her mom. My wife is still up to her antics, but now it's in overdrive. Every day, she brings home some type of trendy clothing in pink or pastels and tries to give it to my daughter. My daughter is getting fed up and stays in her room all day and has confessed to me she can't wait for school to start back up in a few weeks so she can get out of the house and be with her friends again. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I don't want to side with anyone in this situation. I understand my wife wants a daughter she can relate to, and my daughter wants a mom who understands her. I don't know what I can or should do. I need help. I need advice. InkTech said, "My mom wanted me to be a version of her when I was a teenager too. She lost it on me, and my father didn't protect me either. He defended my mom. 30 years later, I have a strained relationship with them both. Protect your kid and go tell your wife to get help with her trauma." To this, OP said, "The comments have really slapped some sense into me. I'll admit, I didn't think any of this was that deep. I came on here mostly as a way to vent and get some advice, but now it feels like I've been slapped in the face with reality. I had no idea just how harmful my wife was being to my daughter. I'm ashamed to admit it now, but I really just chalked it up to mother-daughter bickering, like all teenagers do. I know I had some pretty nasty fights with my parents as a 16-year-old. I want to get both of them help. I love my wife and I love my daughter." Matcha Maggie said, "You need to take a side. Not taking a side is being complicit in allowing your wife to make your daughter's life a living hell, and your daughter will be staying far away from you and her mom once she is 18. Your home is no longer a safe place for her. Your wife is not a safe person for her, and you are not a safe person for her if you don't do anything. Do the right thing by your daughter. Stand up for her." Update. It's been about a week since I last posted about how my wife was having a meltdown over how my daughter chose to dress. 2 nights after I posted, I sat my wife down and very bluntly asked her what exactly the problem was. She kept saying she just wanted a daughter who was similar to her, but after I kept asking, she broke down and admitted the real reason why she was having her meltdowns. My wife feels that her daughter is the only way for her to have more family in the future. She's estranged from her siblings, her parents don't speak much to her, and all of her friends from high school stopped talking to her after her pregnancy. She wants a family back, and she's hoping that her daughter will marry a nice boy and give her grandkids so she can have a family again. She said she never brought up having more kids with me because she figured I'd be against the idea. I don't know how I feel about having more kids with my wife, but it certainly won't happen now. So my wife is in therapy to try and get her to realize that she can't just view my daughter as a way to create a family. She's doing well so far, but it's too soon to really tell. My daughter is also in therapy. She's been in therapy since she was a kid for bullying issues, but now her therapist is trying to focus on the meltdown situation with her. My daughter actually seems relatively unaffected by this whole situation other than being a little annoyed, so I don't know if that's good or not. I took my daughter to Hot Topic for some back-to-school accessories and then took her out to eat, just the 2 of us. She's still excited to go back to school. She misses her friends and her clubs. My wife and daughter have started talking normally again. They had a long talk, which I was present for, where my wife apologized for being so pushy and extreme with her wishes. My daughter was very receptive to this talk and seems to be back to her normal self. I am keeping an eye on both of them to be sure. My wife is doing her best to understand my daughter's interests. Last I knew, the 2 were watching some slasher TV show on Hulu as a way to bond, and it appears to be working. There isn't any bad blood between the 2. I know things are still new and that things can change, but so far everything appears to be smoothing over pretty well. Thank you for all the advice, harsh and gentle, that I reviewed through my original post. It definitely slapped me in the face with what could happen if I didn't get both of them help and make them talk it out. This next post was made in the true Off My Chest subreddit by a user named Primary Ad. The post is titled, "My MIL asked my husband to subscribe to her OnlyFans. My mother-in-law has always been very open about sex. When I first met my husband, she managed a sex toy store. About a year ago, she started working toward a degree in sexual health and wellness. She nude models for a local artist, and around a month ago, she started an OnlyFans account. Sex and openness about it has always been extraordinarily normal for her. I have absolutely nothing against her working in the sex industry. That's her forte, and I'm happy that she's doing well and enjoying what she does. However, I've had some slight concerns about it before, not specifically her working in the sex industry or her openness in general, but rather how open she is, especially with her own kids. For example, my husband and I started dating in high school when she was managing the sex store. When she would come home from work, she would stop into my husband's room and hand us sample sizes of different lubes and sensation creams, saying, "I thought you guys might want to try some of these." It always made us both pretty uncomfortable, and it was extremely awkward to have my boyfriend's mom hand me things to try sexually with her son. But nonetheless, the most conversation my husband and I ever had about it back then was about how awkward it was. So awkward and uncomfortable that we never actually used these things. They just piled up on a shelf by his bed. Another time, while we were dating, we were hanging out with his sisters. His mom was still working at the sex toy shop. Once in a while, she would come home with silly toys, and on this night, she walked in with a 1-foot-long glittery dildo. She playfully whipped it around toward us like a sword. His sister screamed and ran from her, and for a while, we all laughed and had fun about it, snatching it from one another and chasing each other around with the glitter schlog. Eventually, my husband's sister said something like, "Mom, you better not have brought that home to use. That's crazy." My husband chimed in with an ew, saying he didn't need to think about that. And his mom laughed and replied, "Oh no, that's silicone. You know the toys I use are glass." Again, my husband made a weird face but didn't say anything. When we got to his room, I said that it was weird that his mom talked to her children about what she uses to get her rocks off, and he told me that she's always been way too open about things that none of them wanted to know, but that she's always been this way, so he's just gotten used to tuning it out. As time went on, I got used to the openness, and it was just that, being too open about personal stuff within conversation. However, yesterday the openness went too far. My husband and I were sitting in our living room watching TV. My husband got a text from his mom and opened it and had a visceral reaction. He tossed his phone down, stood up, walked away from it with his hands over his face while saying things like, "Oh my God," and "holy shit" under his breath. Naturally, I thought that someone had died, so I started frantically asking what was wrong. All he said was that he didn't even want to open his phone again. I asked again what was wrong, and he told me that his mom just sent him pictures. I was confused, but my concern started to grow. I asked what he meant by pictures, and he hesitated before saying, "I don't want to ask you to look, but I can't open it back up to delete it myself, so I need you to." My stomach dropped. I opened his phone to see what was there, and I immediately felt nauseous. There was a text that read, "Hey, I know you've always supported me, and I wanted to see if you'd be willing to subscribe to my OnlyFans so that I can get my numbers up while I'm still getting started. Of course, I don't expect or want you looking through it, but the more subscriber numbers I have, the more engagement I can get. I was also wondering if you'd be willing to share my link to some of your friends at work. The pics I included are to send to them with the link, but don't tell them I'm your mom." And under it were the pictures. There were 3 nude photos of his mother, and not just naked in a mirror or a pic of the boobs kind of photos. They were full-on pornographic photos. One of her tied up in BDSM gear, one of her face down, ass up on her bed, and one of her with legs spread and a dildo halfway in her mouth. My blood was boiling. I deleted what she'd sent, and my husband and I were both silent for a moment. I didn't know what else to say or do, so I broke the silence by asking, "What now?" My husband told me to block his mom on his phone, so I did. I asked if this was something his mom had done before, and he said no. He told me that in the past she's asked if he wanted to see pictures of the drawings she posed for. He always felt a bit guilty saying no, so he simply didn't respond when she asked, and she never sent it. Then my husband went pale and started walking to the bathroom, saying he felt sick. While he was in the bathroom, I blocked his mom on my phone as well, including her social media accounts. When my husband came back out of the bathroom, he called his sister. He asked her if she was with their mom, and when she said no, he explained to her what had just gone down. His sister was also speechless. Then he asked her not to say anything to other family members right now and explained that neither he nor I would be in contact with their mom for a while. He also told her that any time we were home for a visit, he would let his sisters know so that we could plan to see them, but that his mom would not be included in those plans from here on out. My mother-in-law quickly realized that she was blocked on everything by the both of us, and by that night, she had the whole family blowing up our phones asking why. The constant messages haven't stopped, and so far we've just muted our phones as we don't even know what to say. How do you explain that your mother sent you her homemade porn? Update. Many asked for an update, so here is a small one for now. When my husband got home from work today, he did have me recover the messages for evidence should it be needed. I screenshot the message with timestamps and each of the photos. In the photos, I scribbled over her private areas as well. After that, I sent the images to my phone and once again deleted the messages from his phone, both in his mother's text and mine. This was something that several people suggested in the comments of my previous post, and believe me, we were on the same page before I even read them. My husband and I are also regulars in therapy, both individual and couples counseling. When we got married, we agreed that doing counseling from the get-go was a good idea. Not because we have problems in our marriage, but because it gives us the tools to confront issues in the future and keeps us on the same page 100% of the time. That being said, I asked my husband if he'd ever mentioned his mother's sexualness in his own therapy, and he said no. Since it is how she's always been, he saw it as mostly normal. I suggested that this should most definitely be brought up at his next session, and he agreed. I also asked if there was anything that had happened that was a bit overboard in the past. Outside of conversation, he said that his mother would often come home from work with new lingerie and would put it on and wear it around the house for the rest of the night as if they were regular clothes. When she would do this, he would either stay in his room or go to a friend's house because it made him uncomfortable. Several people asked why there hasn't been a conversation about her talking about uncomfortable topics. There has been. When my husband and I were dating, she would talk to my husband about our sex life explicitly. Some of the questions she's asked him are if he likes girls who are clean shaven, if he and I were using lube, if I preferred ribbed condoms, if we had tried certain positions, even if I preferred stimulation via clitoris or G-spot. When she would ask these things, my husband simply wouldn't answer with more than "I don't know," but eventually he did tell her to stop. He told her that he didn't want to talk about these things with her, that he knew I wouldn't want her talking about those things with him, and that her asking this stuff made him extremely uncomfortable. Her response was to get defensive and act as if she'd been disrespected. She would say that sex was normal, that she should be able to have these conversations with her son, and she even accused him of shaming her sexuality. So he went back to ignoring the questions altogether. Some suggested that we have an in-person conversation with her about what happened. Not only do we live far away, but we aren't ready for a conversation about it, and we especially aren't ready to discuss it in person. This happened yesterday afternoon, and it will honestly be a very long time before any sort of communication happens with her at all. I did find out what she'd been telling family. She's telling them that she asked if her son supported her, not if he would subscribe and share her content. That is why family has been reaching out and asking why we've blocked her for asking that. We will be telling family exactly what happened, but we aren't quite ready to do so yet, and that will come within the next few days. We're still processing all of what's going on. My husband has a therapy session tomorrow, and we have one together the next day. We will likely wait to talk about this with family until after our sessions. That way we can get our ducks in a row a bit more, and we are even considering legal action. Again, that is something we will bring up with our therapist before continuing. That is the main reason we took screenshot evidence. For those curious, yes, my mother-in-law is young. She had my husband at 16 to 17, and we got married young as well. Very common among my family, and in the field of work he is in. And that field of work is the military, so him sharing his mother's content would heavily affect him. Not just a firing that would give him a sexual harassment and assault response and prevention case and a possible dishonorable discharge, which would make it extremely difficult to go on after the military. That's all I have for an update right now, but trust that there will be another. Thanks so much for all of the advice and support I received on my last post. I seriously gained such good info from the comments, and it's been really helpful. Final update. My husband and I have spoken with therapists about the entire situation, and we've drawn a conclusion about how we will handle things. As advised by our therapist and based on what we've planned ourselves, my mother-in-law will be cut off until she does the self-work and is no longer overly sexual toward family. That being said, my husband and I are prepared for her to be cut off permanently. She will likely not attend therapy herself as she sees it as unimportant. I'm not sure if her opinion comes from her visiting a therapist previously, but she does believe that therapists just tell you everything wrong with yourself and why you need to change. They don't actually try to help your mental health, just make it worse. I'm sure everyone can imagine what has caused her to draw those conclusions. As of now, my husband and I will not be pursuing legal action. We've decided that for us at this time, we would prefer to to lay down the law regarding what we feel comfortable with. If that is respected, that is great, and nothing more will come of it on our end. If that isn't respected and there are more attempts to reach us, such as creating accounts, etc., we will most likely seek out a restraining order. As I mentioned in a previous update, I have saved the screenshots from the original issue, so we will have that to present if needed. On to family. As a reminder, my husband's side of the family was blowing up our phones asking why we would block my mother-in-law. What my mother-in-law told them was that we blocked her after she simply asked for our support in the things she's doing. What they didn't know was that she sent photos of herself. We told them we didn't send the photos, of course, but did describe them. Things were understood quickly and nothing more was said. I don't know if family has taken it upon themselves to confront my mother-in-law about this. If they have, great, she needs it. If they haven't, oh well. Now, from my own perspective, I was raised in a family where everything was very taboo. Sex, sexuality, our bodies, even our periods were difficult to talk about. So much so that when my mom found out I had a crush on a boy when I was 13, I cried and profusely apologized because I thought I would be in a lot of trouble. Asking questions wasn't okay either, so when I did have questions, I couldn't simply ask. For example, I overheard my mom say the word porn and didn't know what it meant. When I asked my parents what the word porn was, I got sent to my room. So at 7 years old, I grabbed the family tablet and Googled porn. I saw a bunch of naked people, got scared, and put the iPad back in the living room. When my parents checked the search history that night, I was screamed at and not allowed to touch electronics for the rest of the year. With all of that in mind, a sex-positive family was so incredibly foreign to me. The idea of being able to go to your mom, ask about sex or your body, and have a conversation instead of getting in trouble was completely new. When my husband and I were dating, I never knew that his mom was going too far. I thought that this simply was sex positivity. Of course, I had intuition that things went too far at times, like when I questioned the toy conversation, but when the response to my questions was, she's just really open, I chalked it up to that and didn't really question it anymore. To answer some common questions, my mother-in-law is not this way when it comes to my sisters-in-law. I always assumed it was because they were younger, but the pictures being sent to only my husband really hammered the nail into the covert incest coffin. Come to find out, my mother-in-law also isn't quite as open with my sisters-in-law. She is open about her own doings, but doesn't meddle in theirs like she did with my husband. I mentioned before that she would question my husband on our sex life when we were dating. Another phone call with my middle sister-in-law revealed that she's absolutely never done that to the girls. In fact, there have been times where she's overheard my sisters-in-law saying something about their boyfriends, and she would say, "Lower your voice, I don't want to know," whereas she would straight up ask my husband about sex. Another common question was, "Where's your father-in-law? He's never been in the picture." My husband's dad left when my mother-in-law was pregnant with her youngest daughter. My mother-in-law also doesn't have a father herself because he left when she was a baby. And there aren't a lot of men in the family, 2 distant uncles and a few cousins, but as far as close family, my husband was the only male growing up. And yes, some people got it right. My husband looks exactly like his biological dad. Same build, same hair type and color, same bone structure, same eye shape, even a very similar birthmark. That fact makes this even more gross altogether. And finally, no, we don't have children. However, I have always had concerns about leaving children alone with her because of the openness. I will know when my future children are ready to know about certain topics. Those conversations will come from my husband and me and only us. I've always been concerned that my mother-in-law would discard our opinions on that and give our future children the birds and bees talk whenever she felt like it. Unless she cannot fix whatever is wrong in her brain, she will not ever be alone with our kids, and possibly not even know them. But overall, this is my final update in the whole situation. The original post was removed from the sub, so it's been reposted on my personal page for those interested in reading. I'll remain active on this account to answer questions, so if any other questions arise, ask away and I would be happy to answer. Thank you so much to everyone for all of the advice. I didn't even know the term covert incest before posting, and I'm grateful that I do now. It's given my husband and me something to do a little research about, and it's changed our perspective perspective on the past quite a bit. My husband will be taking all of this into therapy more than just his last sessions, and at my next personal session, I will likely bring it up too. It's also a topic that will be discussed at counseling together more than just yesterday's session as well. Again, thank you everyone. Just Breathe said, there's not enough therapy. To this, Safia said, I feel so bad for him. His mom has been trying to insert herself into his sexuality for so long that it almost seemed normal to him. So she just keeps pushing boundaries farther and farther. This is how grooming works. Majestic Constant said, today was a national holiday in my country, and since I have the day off tomorrow, I was looking forward to a long weekend. I'm sitting here in my favorite hoodie, my comfiest pants, with my favorite juice and a jar of Nutella and a spoon. There are 2 nightingales singing beautifully in the park across the street. I had some chill music in the background and was just vibing at 1 a.m. This is all ruined now because I have to go and wash my eyes with bleach and find someone who still performs lobotomies in 2025. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, Gamersubs. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.